All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Big Dog Brett. Thanks so much for tuning in. I know it's been a little while since we've made a video. I've been super crazy busy, lots of stuff going on, preparing for the Slob Olympics, but wanted to let you guys know my thoughts on the way NIL is working. So, in case you didn't notice, after signing day, Texas A&M was number 1, Alabama number 2, Georgia number 3, Georgia number 2, Alabama number 3, depending on what site you looked at. Pardon me. But either way, Texas A&M out of nowhere jumps, well, I won't say out of nowhere, we'll say since before the NIL, jumped over both teams that were in the national championship playoff the year before last. One of those same teams won the national championship, and then this year the other team won the national championship. And somehow Texas A&M has leapfrogged both of those teams with a relatively new head coach. You know, there's so much there that makes you go, what's going on? Like, first of all, let me turn my heater down or up, however you want to look at it. All of this, it basically is because of NIL agreements. If you look at, I think it was like 8 or 9 of the number 1 recruits at their position in the country are currently going to Texas A&M. Now, how long they stay, that's another story. We don't know. They may transfer after year 1, but it's definitely directly related to NIL. And so if you can't see this coming, the main teams, the teams that are in it with the majority or the lion's share of the talent are now going to be predicated on these NIL deals. They are literally going to be the teams with the biggest purse strings. So you're going to see teams like Georgia, Alabama, I guess now Texas A&M, Texas, USC, probably Oregon, Ohio State, maybe Michigan. You're going to see a bunch of teams out there that's really going to be they're really going to be spending a lot more money on these NIL deals. Now, these NIL deals are not going to be like you see, an NFL contract. That's just not going to happen. But you are going to see a substantial amount of money go into this. Now, the thing that you need to be on the forefront, I haven't heard anybody talk about this is why I wanted to talk about it. All of a sudden, scholarships don't mean as much as they used to, because a scholarship basically gave these students a way to pay for college. Well, if your NIL agreement is greater than what your college tuition is, then what's the point of the scholarship? So now, if you have a big enough purse, the scholarships mean very little to me, in my opinion. I don't know what is going on. It's early spring allergies or something. I'm not sure. But anyway, I apologize. All of a sudden, we have a completely different dynamic in college football, and that really is going to come down to how our college is going to respond to this, because the NIL stuff's basically already been all the way up the ladder on the court side, and they've been told there's absolutely nothing you can do. You can make as much money as you want off of your name, image, and likeness. It is your name, image, and likeness. The question is how are the coaches going to be able to deal with this? I would probably say it's going to be very interesting seeing how many coaches continue to stay in college football with this new added dynamic versus the ones that choose to go pro, just so they don't have to deal with the extra headache and hard work that goes into recruiting and NIL agreements, and what kind of new regulations are going to come along the line for that. What is the NCAA going to say about recruiting now with NIL? So in the past, there was all these rules that came into place based off of how the players were, let's just say, wooed to come to a school. I remember years back, players got in trouble because they gave a autographed jersey up for auction for charity or stuff like that. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous stuff. And now all of a sudden you have name, image, and likeness that's completely turned this whole thing on its ear. And it is not good for smaller schools that are already having trouble and difficulty garnering talent. So let's say that you are a Cincinnati Bearcat team, that has done really, really well in the past couple of years. Now, I haven't done the check-in on this, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to be a major player in the NIL landscape. They're just not. So then you get into things like one of the things Dean Leahy was talking about was that what kind of market share does the state that you're in garner? For instance, like if you're a Florida team, you're split up amongst all the different places in the state. So like you're split between Jacksonville, Miami, Tampa, Tallahassee. I mean, the whole thing, Miami, if I didn't say Miami, I meant to say Miami, Orlando, whatever. Those markets are pretty split. In the state of Georgia, which I really liked what Dean said. He was like, it's Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs, not anything else but Georgia Bulldogs, the Atlanta Braves, and then third place, a distant third, would be the Atlanta Falcons, and then somewhere way out there in nowhere is the Hawks, and then it drops off a cliff, right? And then buried beneath the rubble of a landslide in the depths of the catacombs, and I'm taking an artistic license to what he said here, is Georgia Tech. While Georgia Tech may have a little bit of money, they certainly don't have the revenue strength that the Georgia Bulldogs or the Atlanta Braves have. They're not going to be able to compete on NIL agreements with Georgia. So the gap is going to continue to widen. South Carolina has to compete with not just Georgia, because Athens is almost right across the border, geographically speaking. I mean, it's not. I think it's like an hour. Then you've got South Carolina Gamecocks is based out of Columbia, which is centrally located in South Carolina, and then not far from there is Clemson, and then not far from there is North Carolina. So those particular markets, there's not much there. They don't. Maybe Clemson could pull a little, but monetarily speaking, they're not going to be able to compete with Ohio State. I don't see how that's going to happen. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see how that's going to happen. What I'm going to predict is that in the future, there's going to be some additional. There has to be some kind of additional regulations that come along with this. While you might not be able to limit how much money a player can get from an NIL agreement, there may be something that comes along from the NCAA to regulate how many players can receive NIL agreements. So, for instance, if you have a player on your team that's kind of like a pseudo scholarship, I would guess. I don't know how they would work that out. It sounds like it would be tricky, but I think that there's going to be something in place like that. Maybe you can't limit how much money somebody can make. I'm just not sure how it's all going to work out. I don't know how you would regulate this system, but I can tell you that if it doesn't get regulated, it is going to get wildly out of control. So, and really what's going to have to come into place is the schools that do the best jobs at getting NIL agreements are going to be the schools that are getting the top players. Because why would you go play for, let's say your choices are Georgia, Texas A&M, and Alabama. One of the top recruits in the country, Shamar, picked Texas. I think he picked Texas A&M? I can't remember. I know he didn't pick Georgia. But let's just say you're a high quality guy, and all three of these teams are in the SEC. They all three have talent. Texas A&M beat Alabama last year, so that there's some pull there. But then you've got to figure out why a kid's going to pick a school, and if they're all offering the same opportunity to be on primetime television, but one school is offering him, I don't know, maybe $200,000 more a year in NIL. Which one's he going to pick? Well, it's a no-brainer. It really is a no-brainer. Kirby Smart has come out and said that, one of the things that they're trying to do is help impress upon these kids the difference that a college scholarship can make and getting ready to go pro versus being focused so much on NIL. There's a lot more commas in an NFL contract than there is ever going to be in an NIL agreement. I think that may be the case probably 99% of the time, but I guarantee you there's going to be that 1% that's going to be vastly different. The questions have also been brought up of who or how is the best way to ask this question. How is it going to work out for players that get injured that are on NIL? What if a player gets benched? What if a player transfers in state? Let's say you go from a Georgia to a Georgia Tech, or you go from a Florida Gators to a Miami Hurricanes team, or you go from a Texas A&M to a Texas team, or you go from USC to Cal or whatever. How's that going to work out? Does that NIL carry? Because some of these college traditional leagues are not very far apart. So, for instance, I think the distance from Gainesville to Florida State is just a couple of hours, but they're in the state of Florida. Georgia Tech's a couple of hours. Alabama, Auburn. What do you do? What do you say? I think there's a whole lot that's going to be coming out of this, and I think if they're not careful, this could really bury some of the programs that could potentially one day become quality football teams. But this may be a barrier that's just too big for some of these smaller upcoming schools to overcome, depending on how NIL pans out. I don't have all the answers. I got more questions than I got answers, and the more answers I give seems like the more questions I come up with. But I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on that. So that's how I feel. Leave a thought. Leave your opinion, leave your comment down in the comment section. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and stick around for Slob Olympics. We're going to do some training videos here pretty soon. Really appreciate you guys. We're well over the 5,000 mark. Greatly appreciate you guys. We'll make some more videos here soon. So, thank you guys so much. Have a great day. God bless. Go Dogs.